This is weird. I started making videos about anime and now we get to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Before we talk about JoJo's, I want to say that one of my biggest joys in life is making videos that you guys love. So I was pretty excited when I found out about Amino's new stories feature. Amino reached out to me and I've decided to join in the fun. You guys know I don't normally watch anime, but I created a quick story about anime that I've recently seen, including JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I'll be posting some exclusive content there, so be sure to check it out. Click the link in the description or pinned YouTube comment, or search for Amino apps to download Amino. Find my stories by searching Marcosatsu 1. Make sure to follow me and click the bell to know when I'm posting new videos. Just like YouTube, every time you watch my videos, you'll be supporting me. So if you like my videos, this is a simple, free way to keep creating. Now to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Phantom Blood. Oh wait, you thought I would be the one to talk about it? Well...
That's right, I'm the one who wanted to make this video. You thought it would be Marcos, but it was me, Dallas. I'll be entirely honest in saying that I've never been a die-hard JoJo fan. I've been loving the Part 5 anime as it's been airing, but realized that I was almost entirely unfamiliar with what came before Part 3. Were there stands? How's the writing? Did they have Ora Ora? I figured now would be a great time to dive in and catch up on what I missed. Let's see what early JoJo's was all about, starting with Part 1, Phantom Blood. But first, let's talk a bit about how the franchise we know and love came to be. Hirohiko Araki worked on a few projects before falling into his magnum opus. His official debut was in 1980's Poker Under Arms, a one-shot manga that tells the story of a dangerous high-stakes poker game. After several years of working on serialized shonen manga such as Bao and Gorgeous Irene, he published the first chapter of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure in January of 1987. And the rest is history. As a disclaimer, I'll be talking primarily about David Productions' 2012 anime adaptation of Phantom Blood. I haven't read all of the manga, nor have I seen the 2007 OVA commemorating the 25th anniversary of Araki's career. I'd also like to note that I watched the subbed version. The dub isn't... offensive?
I was only trying to help! Don't!
I will have a servant carry them up for me.
But I tend to prefer to watch things in their original language. The story does take place in Victorian England, but I digress. Anyway, on to the plot. The show opens in 1868, with a brutal stagecoach accident leaving seemingly no survivors but a crying baby. Looking to make a buck, a scummy thief starts looking through their belongings. This man is Dario Brando. One of the men wakes up, wrongly thinking that Dario had come to help him. He explains that his name is George Joestar I, and that the Joestars now owe Dario a great debt for saving his life. Fast forward to 1880. The baby from the stagecoach is George's son John, or as most people call him, JoJo. A group of kids are bullying a girl named Irina Pendleton. Out of nowhere, JoJo tackles them and proceeds to get absolutely whooped. He explains that he wants to be a true gentleman, and that a true gentleman is brave enough to go into a fight he knows he'll lose. Meanwhile, Dario lies on his deathbed and tells his son Dio to go live with the Joestars and to use them to become the richest man alive. Dio then spits on his grave and sets out to do just that. Dio arrives at the Joestar estate and, in a move that can only be classified as not cool, immediately kicks the hell out of JoJo's dog Danny. Dio starts to outshine JoJo in school, manners, and all that. He starts turning the kids of the town against JoJo and vows to ruin his life for no other reason than because he can. Meanwhile, JoJo and Erina have a budding romance. They go on dates, he carves their initials into a heart on a tree, and it's pretty adorable. Always a man to stay on brand, Dio decides to ruin that too. He forcibly kisses Erina, content that he stole her first kiss from JoJo. She washes her mouth with puddle water, and an insulted Dio slaps her. JoJo later finds out about this, and runs to confront his newly adopted brother. He completely stomps Dio and spills some of his blood on a stone mask on the wall. It reacts, falling down and releasing some weird spikes. Worth a mental note. George yells at both of them, and Dio pouts as they're sent to their rooms. Later on, a servant sees an odd box in their furnace waiting to be burned and thinks nothing of it. When he closes the furnace door, banging can be heard from the inside. As a bummer in a series of bummers, Danny was in that box and burned alive. Rough. Let's jump forward a bit again, this time to 1888. Jack the Ripper, who you may know from the real-life murders of Jack the Ripper, is seen doing the murders. You know, those ones. Back at home, JoJo and Dia are playing a good old-fashioned game of rugby. They've done well in school and are set to graduate with concentrations in archaeology and law respectively. They seem to be friends now, but JoJo is understandably still a bit suspicious. Meanwhile, George is getting sicker by the minute. Dio urges him not to go to a hospital and to simply keep taking the medicine he brings to him from his servants. JoJo, studying the stone mask from earlier, finds a letter written by Dio's father Dario. It details the way Dario's illness progressed and was eerily similar to George's current symptoms. Connecting the dots, JoJo figures that Dio likely poisoned his own father and is doing the same to George. After a confrontation, JoJo decides to head to London in an attempt to have Dio's medicine analyzed by scientists. Dio remembers how the stone mask reacted to his blood and plans to kill JoJo with it before he's able to return with info about the medicine. As expected, the medicine couldn't be identified and he heads to the bad part of town looking to find its true source. He's rushed by 3 thugs and stomps them without too much trouble. One of the thugs was impressed that JoJo held back when beating him. This thug, Robert E.O. Speedwagon, pointed him in the direction of an Asian medicine man. Dio, meanwhile, is wandering around London pouting because he can't find JoJo. He then runs into 2 drunkards and decides to test the stone mask on one of them. It seems to kill him instantly, but he then stands back up, and this time with sharp teeth and inhuman strength. He drains some of Dio's blood and disintegrates as the sun begins to rise over the horizon. If you couldn't figure it out, he's a vampire. Back at the Joestar estate, JoJo confronts Dio and claims to have proof of his plot to poison George. Speedwagon brings out Wang Chan, the merchant who sold Dio the faux medicine. Dio asks that he turn himself in and that JoJo be the one to handcuff him. Bruh moment impending. Dio waxes poetic about the limits of being human and motions to stab JoJo. George stepped in and took the knife in his son's stead. Dio puts on the bloodied mask and falls out of the window after being shot by a group of police officers. George asks that JoJo not hate Dio, as it was his own fault for bringing him into their lives to begin with. After a moment, they go to collect Dio's body, only to find the stone mask in its place. One of the cops gets killed instantly, and we hear "Ri" as Dio is hanging upside down above him. This is a battle cry that will come to be closely associated with him, and is not dissimilar to the hissing sound that a lot of vampires make in Western media. Think Bram Stoker. Dio proceeds to kill the rest of the police officers, turning them into zombies. JoJo decides that the best course of action would be to burn the entire mansion down with Dio in it, hopefully killing him. He tells Speedwagon to flee and starts heading toward the roof. Dio walks up a wall, letting out another of what would become his classic catchphrases, muda muda muda, or, as it directly translates, useless. On the roof, JoJo tackles Dio into the building as the fire within is now white hot. As they're falling, we're graced by this classic line. Get back, JoJo! JoJo catches himself and kicks off the wall, impaling Dio on the statue of the Joestar's guardian angel. Dio seems to disintegrate and JoJo's left unconscious with Speedwagon outside. 3 days after all that business, Erina is nursing JoJo back to health. He wakes up, and after all of 30 seconds of being conscious, drops a line so smooth it ought to be illegal.
But your arm! It's broken, you shouldn't have caught me!
You caught me long ago.
In London, we see Jack the Ripper, remember him, stab a woman to death. Dio finds and recruits him, always eager to have more weirdos on his team. Back in JoJo land, our main man is on a walk with Erina when a guy in a white suit and top hat comes along and knocks the wind out of JoJo with his pinky. This man is Baron Will A. Zappelli, an archaeologist who found the stone mask on a disastrous expedition and has been hunting it down for decades. He's a master of Hamon, an energy coming from blood flow that harnesses the power of the sun through special breathing techniques. Yep, it's pretty much just magical sun karate. Seeing that JoJo's capable of using Hamon, he decides to take him on as a student. After a brief period of training, the gang hears word that someone like Dio was seen in a small town called Widnight's Lot, and start heading there. While in a tunnel, their carriage is ambushed by Jack the Ripper. Zappelli decides to use this as a test of JoJo's ability. Handing him a glass of wine, Zappelli explains that he has to fight Jack without spilling even a single drop. In total darkness, JoJo harnesses Hamon and absolutely claps Jack by punching through a wall. Sick. Widnight's Lot is a small valley town surrounded by sharp cliffs. It was originally used as a training ground for knights in medieval times, but since then has become a coal mining town largely consisting of prisoners. As they're walking along, a random kid named Poco vaults over the gang and steals their briefcase. Zappelli and JoJo chase after him, knocking him off a sheer rock wall. As the sun sets, they realize they're in a graveyard and that Poco was hypnotized to lure them there. Our old buddy Dio shows up, and Zappelli doesn't hesitate to taunt him into a fight.
Hey, baby!
Dio freezes Zappelli's hand, rendering him unable to use Hamon. Seeing this fight is beneath him, Dio summons Tarkus and Black Knight Bruford from the dead to fight on his behalf. These two were loyal knights under Queen Mary in 1565, rival to Elizabeth I. They offered to give their lives in exchange for hers, but Mary was killed anyway. With their dying breaths, they cursed the world right before being beheaded. Bruford asks to fight JoJo alone, and after a brief fight underwater, JoJo uses Hamon to restore Bruford to his noble human self. Before fading away, Bruford gives JoJo his sword, engraved with luck, or, adding a letter with his blood, pluck. Tarkus, still a weird zombie, stomps on Bruford's armor. As they try to escape, Zappelli thinks back to his own time learning Hamon. He found a doctor in India using it to treat patients, and traveled to Tibet to meet his master, Tonpetty. Tonpetty was insistent that going on the path of learning Hamon would inevitably doom Zappelli, but he proceeded nonetheless. After 3 years of training, Tonpetty gives him one final chance to leave, before telling him the prophecy of the fate he has doomed himself to. Tarkus crashes into the same building the gang landed on, and JoJo finds himself chained to the ceiling with a collar around his neck. This place is the lair of the two-headed dragon, where Tarkus has killed 48 people in one-on-one death matches. There's no way in or out beyond killing your opponent and using the key from their collar to unlock your own. JoJo's quickly put into dire straits, and Speedwagon and Zeppeli are left to panic outside. Out of options, Poco notices a small hole and musters the courage to crawl through and pull the lever to open the door. Zeppeli, seeming apprehensive at first, remembers Tonpetty's prophecy. In an ancient, hidden chamber that reeks of death, a child will open the way. In order to release a chained young lion into the future, you will burn your own wounds, and after, a cruel death awaits you. Accepting his fate, he runs in to fight Tarkus and is cut in half almost immediately. He passes what remains of his powers onto JoJo, who rips his collar off and completely washes Tarkus. Reflecting on his life before hunting for the mask, Zeppeli tells JoJo to defeat Dio and to destroy it. After ceremoniously burning his body, the gang starts again toward Wind Knight's lot. On the way there, they meet a zombie from town and several friends of Zeppeli's arrive. Dyer, Straitzo, and even Tonpetty himself have come to aid JoJo at Zeppeli's request. As a show of just how much of a loser Dio is, he accepts a bargain from a woman to zombify her in exchange for sparing her child, and watches as she kills her himself. We also see that he's now taken residence in a spooky castle and has taken a girl hostage. In town, Poco's father tells him that his sister went out to look for him. She was taken by Dio and slaps him. He bids her adieu. Bye, mademoiselle. And leaves her with Doobie, a weird-looking monster. Before he can attack, an anvil's launched at him. JoJo fights him, uttering that oh-so-buttery line for the first time. After taking care of that, they head up to see Dio, who tells his minions that he'd like to kill JoJo himself. Dyer goes to fight Dio instead, and is immediately frozen and smashed. With his last breath, his severed head launches a Hamon-infused rose at Dio, hitting his eye and enraging him. With Straitzo and Tonpetty fighting off zombies, JoJo's left to fight Dio alone. Freezing JoJo, and even after being cut in half, Dio seems to be all but invincible. As a last-ditch effort, JoJo lights his glove on fire by punching through an open flame and punches Dio off of the precipice of the castle. Dio fires a laser on his way down, but the gang is content they've won. Speedwagon celebrates, while JoJo cries, still wishing he and Dio could have been brothers. As he's falling, Dio decapitates himself, and Wang Chan finds his head. Afterward, Speedwagon smashes the mask. JoJo and Erina get married and plan a honeymoon in America. Speedwagon and the gang wait at the dock to see the newlyweds off on their trip. Meanwhile, a few deckhands are seen moving a heavy box onto the ship. Uri can be heard from within it. A priest, Father Styx, is going on a mission trip to Mexico aboard the same boat. In the middle of the Atlantic, JoJo and Erina share a nice moment, where she wishes that today would never end. Bruh moment impending. Father Styx drops his crucifix onto the mysterious box from earlier, now below deck in the boiler room. JoJo gives Erina a sip of wine, and drops the glass after seeing Wang Chan in the shadows. Styx grabs his crucifix from the now unlocked box and is instantly killed. Suddenly, the ship is overrun with zombies as Dio's severed head tells JoJo that he now respects him and wants to take his body for his own. Dio shoots a laser into JoJo's neck, rendering him unable to breathe or use Hamon. JoJo uses what power he has left to incapacitate Wang Chan, leaving his body propped in such a way that the ship will start to build up steam and explode. A woman holding a child is killed, with her baby left crying. JoJo insists that Erina flee the ship with the child, though she wants to remain and die with him. As the ship starts to blow, several pieces of debris are shot into JoJo's back. He uses one of them to stab Dio, and cradles his severed head. Dio tries bargaining with JoJo, offering him a chance at immortality, but it was already too late. JoJo is dead. Erina survived by locking herself in Dio's indestructible box. She swears that JoJo's descendants will hear his story as she drifts off into the Atlantic. Araki has stated that one of his greatest inspirations for JoJo's was the popular shonen manga Fist of the North Star. This is largely evident in its leading characters, with JoJo and Kenshiro respectively. The two bear a striking resemblance, and both characters operate similarly. That is to say, they're both infallible buff dudes who beat up bad guys because they're bad. This actually leads into one of my main issues with Phantom Blood. There's this concept of a Mary Sue, or the male version Gary Stu, a character that's just a little bit too perfect. Completely infallible in every way. I think JoJo fits into this category pretty firmly. He's a force of fundamental good, whose only purpose is to combat Dio, a force of fundamental evil. JoJo's never anything less than perfectly righteous and brave. He's a stalwart defender of justice whose character begins and ends at fighting evil for the sake of fighting evil. Dio suffers from the same problem on the opposite side. While we do see how some of his upbringing likely turned him into a less than stellar guy, he's never made relatable and doesn't have an explicit motive driving him other than an innate desire to be evil. JoJo is made to oppose Dio, and Dio to oppose JoJo. They're two sides of the same coin, and I can't help but feel like Phantom Blood's more about their yin and yang style clash than any real story with real people. Beyond that, the lack of a strong supporting cast left me wanting a bit more. Speedwagon's an absolute bro for sure, but we didn't see him or Zeppeli receive much of any character development. JoJo's as a series is known for its wildly eccentric, relentlessly interesting characters. To be fair, I shouldn't rag on Phantom Blood too much for it though. After all, it is just the beginning, and I'm probably just spoiled by the series that it sowed the seeds of. Phantom Blood is, overall, a great first step on an even greater journey. While it's a far cry from what JoJo's has become, it's enjoyable in its own right and absolutely worth a watch if you're a fan of the franchise. At just 9 episodes, it's a perfect way to spend an afternoon or two. Just don't expect any ora. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Hopefully, you all enjoyed that to at least some degree. I'd like to extend a huge thank you to my good friend Marcos, who, when I pitched this idea to him, was actually gracious enough to let me do it on my own. I'd also like to thank Amino, who were kind enough to sponsor this video, and of course, all of you guys who were willing to put up with my annoying voice. If you would like to hear me yell about more stuff, you can feel free to check out my Twitter or my Twitch. Links for all of those are in the description, and I hope that you will all join me next time when we see Hirohiko Araki come into his own a little bit with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 2, Battle Tendency. See ya.